Hi friends, thank you for taking time out of your week to spend a little with me. I appreciate you. This week we have a special holiday themed video, but in true Ash style, we have to keep it creepy. So today, rather than just discuss a case that happened on Christmas, I decided to do a little research into the movie Black Christmas and what actually inspired the creation of this cult classic. And, would you know, I found out the writer was actually inspired by 2 true crime cases. So for today, in lieu of the season, we have a double feature. I'll provide you a little information about the movie itself, then tackle the cases. I ask you to join me as we discuss the true stories that inspired the movie Black Christmas. Black Christmas was released in 1974, written by Roy Moore, produced and directed by Bob Clark. The Canadian horror film paved the way for many other beloved classics such as Halloween and really set the standard for iconic slasher films. The plot revolves around a group of sorority girls who are preparing for the holidays when they suddenly receive strange phone calls. At first, the girls believe it's just prank calls, but the unknown caller quickly turns to threats. These threats quickly manifest into physical acts of violence. One by one, each girl is picked off by an unknown force. The group is quickly dwindled down, leaving just the final girl to discover the truth behind her friend's slayings. Now, I'm not going to give away the big plot points or how it ends, in case my friends haven't seen it before. No one likes a spoiler. Roy Moore went on to explain the story of Black Christmas, initially titled Stop Me, was heavily inspired by the 1960s urban legend, The Babysitter and the Man Upstairs. The legend consists of a babysitter who keeps getting anonymous calls from a man who says the infamous line, "Have you checked the children?" The calls keep coming and coming, and the babysitter becomes uneasy, so she calls the police, who are able to trace the call and discover it's coming from inside the house. This urban legend did go on to inspire its own horror film called When a Stranger Calls, but that's not why we're here. Essentially, Moore used the basis of the legend to establish the plot for Black Christmas. But this wasn't the only element that helped bring this Christmas horror story to the big screen. George Webster. On Wednesday, November 17, 1943, at 5:39 a.m., the Bell Telephone Company operator received a frantic request from a woman that police be sent to the Webster home immediately. The Webster family lived in the affluent neighborhood of Westmount, which sat adjacent to downtown Montreal in Canada. They were considered to be one of the happiest families. Andrew Webster, the patriarch, was a well-known businessman, so along with this came respect from many of his neighbors in the area. The call came as a shock, since Westmount was a very quiet area and the Websters bothered no one, so police hurried over. Sergeant Thomas Beaton was the first to arrive, where he stumbled upon the gruesome scene. No one responded to his request when he called into the home, so Beaton made his way inside. There were no signs of a break-in or struggle. In a downstairs room, the unconscious body of Sylvia Cusp was discovered. Sylvia was a 25-year-old Australian house guest of the Websters. Sylvia and the Websters were part of the Oxford group, and at the time she was touring Canada and staying in the home of various group members. Sylvia was found with head lacerations and a broken arm. Due to her close proximity to the telephone, it is believed she is the one who placed the call to authorities. In the room next to Sylvia was 8-year-old Janet Brown, an English refugee believed to have been staying with the family for 2 years. She was uninjured. Concerned about the rest of the Webster family, authorities headed upstairs to check the bedrooms. In her bed was the body of Mrs. Andrew Webster, aged 30. Mrs. Webster, formerly known as Mina Dawson McCreary, was the daughter of Mrs. and Mr. Fred McCreary. Mrs. Webster was a well-known songstress and was one of the 400 choristers chosen to sing at the coronation ceremonies of King George VI. Mrs. Webster's cause of death was a result of her skull being crushed after repeated blows by a blunt object. In the remaining rooms, the unconscious bodies of Mina Jean, aged 12, and the youngest son, Andrew Jr., aged 8, were found with head injuries and were in serious condition. Mina, Jean, and Sylvia were taken to the Western Division of Montreal General Hospital, while Andrew Jr. was sent to the homeopathic hospital. While moving the surviving victims out to get care, it was realized that one child was still missing. Inside of his room sat George Webster, aged 14, a fair-haired, wide-eyed boy who sat dazed with a bloody baseball bat nearby. George was a 9th grade student at Westmount Junior High School. He was a winner of several awards as a pianist and at hobby shows. George was described as a good child who recently started acting different. His interests changed with the more focus being used on reading murder and mystery novels. Peers explained days before the attack, George was punished twice within the past month for skipping school without permission. When police approached George, he was incoherent before going completely silent. He was detained and held for questioning. Along with police, 2 therapists also spoke with George, but again, they didn't get much of anything out of him. Andrew Webster, who was on business in Toronto, was called after the discovery. He returned home as soon as possible. George Webster was taken to the Stanton Avenue Police Department and placed in a cell until his father arrived. During this short meeting with his father, there was no indication that George spoke more than a few words to him. It's unclear why, but with eyewitness testimony, George was confirmed to have killed his mother, attacked his 2 younger siblings, and Sylvia in a frenzy with a baseball bat. On February 28, 1944, George Webster was tried for his mother's murder. However, a judge deemed he was incompetent to stand trial. He was instead sent to a mental hospital. The case of the vampire killer. The late 1960s were a busy and strange time for Montreal, Canada. In 1967, Montreal hosted an expo which drew people from all over the country, and just 2 years later, violent race-related riots broke out at the Sir George Williams University. The number of homicides were on the rise, with one happening every week. All of these events served as a backdrop for the birth of something sinister. In July of 1968, 21-year-old Norma Viacourt, a teacher from Montreal, caused concern when she didn't show up for work. Her coworkers received no phone calls to excuse her absence, so police were called and asked to stop by the young woman's apartment to perform a welfare check. When police knocked on her front door, no one answered. With the concern from coworkers and those close to Norma, police decided to force their way into the home. Sadly, Norma was found dead on her living room floor. The apartment showed no signs of a struggle. Norma's body appeared to have been strangled, and oddly, there were bite marks found on her chest. The coroner later determined Norma's cause of death was due to asphyxiation. She was strangled so hard that her neck was nearly broken. She was also assaulted at some point during her attack. Allegedly, police and the pathologist claimed Norma died with a soft smile on her face. Details about Norma's attack were not released to the public, specifically regarding the bite marks. All persons of interest were ruled out, and no one could understand why anyone would want to hurt Norma. With no further leads, investigators hit a dead end. Norma would mark the beginning of several seemingly related murders. In October 1969, body number 2 was discovered. A young and pretty woman named Shirley Audette was found behind an apartment complex. Her fully clothed body was discarded in the alley at the bottom of a fire escape, and at first her cause of death wasn't apparent. Small amounts of blood were found around her nostrils, a common result of strangulation. Her autopsy report revealed this detail to be accurate. Her cause of death was due to asphyxiation, and much like Norma, she was assaulted and had bite marks in the same location. Shirley's body had no defensive wounds or evidence to show she put up a fight, leading investigators to believe she may have known her attacker. Her friends were interviewed hoping to get some more personal information on their victim. One of these friends confirmed that Shirley mentioned something to them about getting into something dangerous, but when pressed, she wouldn't explain further. Shirley's ex-boyfriend was also brought in for questioning, and he explained he felt Shirley was getting romantically involved with a violent man, but wasn't sure who this man was. Although they gained some additional information, this wasn't enough to bring them any closer to their killer. Victim number 3 was found the following month. Marielle Archambault, a jewelry clerk, finished her shift one November evening. That night before leaving work, she gushed to coworkers about her date that evening with a man she met named Bill. Marielle spoke highly of him and seemed to be very entranced by this mysterious man. Her coworkers saw who they assumed was Bill briefly before the two drove off in his car. The following morning, Marielle didn't show up for work, and when her employer called her, she didn't answer the phone. Her boss decided to stop by her house to make sure she was okay, but upon his arrival, she didn't answer his knocks at the door. So with the help of her landlord, he gained access to her apartment. Marielle's lifeless body was found fully clothed on her sofa. Her bra and pantyhose were ripped. The coroner revealed her cause of death was due to strangulation, and much like previous victims, she was assaulted and bitten. Police found the home to be in order, which led them to believe she may have willingly let her attacker into the apartment. During a search of the apartment, a crumpled photo was found, but no one had a clue who was in the picture. Her coworkers believed it to be Bill. The photo was released to the public, but again, no success in identifying this mystery man. After the news of Marielle, the public discovered the secret authorities were trying to keep hidden. A serial killer was prowling Montreal. The official news broke that young women needed to be aware of their surroundings. Police believe their perpetrator was a charming man who hunted in local bars and possibly used the alias Bill. The confirmation of danger put the public on high alert, but this didn't stop him. January 17, 1970, Brian Caulfield was on his way to his girlfriend's house for a scheduled date. When he arrived, Jean Way, his girlfriend, did not answer the door. Brian assumed Jean was getting ready, and rather wait in the car, he decided to stop by the nearby bar for a drink. He stayed at the bar for about a half an hour before returning and trying again. When there was no answer a second time, Brian turned the door handle, and to his surprise, it was unlocked. He opened the door, discovering the horrific truth. Jean, who was 24 at the time, was found naked on her sofa. Her death fit the same MO as the previously discovered victims. However, Jean's body did not have bite marks. The pathologist found flakes of skin under her fingernails, indicating she fought her attacker. Despite the lack of bite marks, it was believed Jean's death was related to the others. They speculated Brian might have interrupted the killer's ritual by showing up at the house, and rather than get caught, they fled the scene. Again, with no true leads to follow, Jean's case grew cold. Unbeknownst to the residents of Montreal, the man in the shadows started to grow uncomfortable with the attention. Rather than continue his spree here, he left for Calgary, where he started his crimes once again. In May of 1971, Elizabeth Ann Porteous, aged 33, a school teacher, didn't show up for her class. Elizabeth's coworkers were concerned, so the apartment manager was asked to go to her unit. When she didn't answer his request to enter the residence, he opened the door. Elizabeth's apartment was a wreck, and it was apparent something horrible happened. When the manager entered the bedroom, he discovered Elizabeth left on the floor. Much like the victims in Montreal, Elizabeth was strangled and bitten, except her bite marks were so vicious, the bottom teeth pierced the skin, then pierced it again on the other side. During the attack, her shirt was ripped, sending the buttons holding it together all over the room. Elizabeth's autopsy was performed to confirm her cause of death, and during the procedure, something unusual happened. While moving her onto the operating table, a cufflink fell off of her back. It appeared during the struggle the perpetrator's cufflink fell off of his shirt, and Elizabeth at some point fell on top of it. Although minute, this cufflink would play a significant role. Elizabeth's coworkers and friends were questioned about her personal life, and many explained Elizabeth recently started seeing a man named Bill. The night prior to her body being discovered, she told coworkers she was going on a date with Bill. In some strange coincidence, this coworker happened to see Elizabeth sometime after work in a car with a man while sitting at a stoplight. The coworker took notice because she was curious about her mystery man. She was able to provide a detailed description of the car and the man driving it, even down to tiny details such as a bumper sticker. The car was a blue Mercedes, and the man she described to be attractive, had a muscular build, tall, and had dark hair. The next day, a patrolling officer near the scene of the crime noticed a car matching the description parked. He waited around for the owner, a man who just so happened to also fit the description of Bill. The officer asked for his name, to which the man replied, Wayne Boden. Wayne was born on January 1st, 1948 in Dundas, Ontario. He grew up in a home where he was shown no love or affection. As a teen, Wayne was shy and attended Glendale Secondary School in Hamilton. His classmates claimed Wayne was quiet and reserved. It was during these formative years he found a hobby in football. But Wayne's life after school goes dark, and he resurfaces as a young man in his 20s, no longer the shy and reserved adolescent. He donned thick sideburns and a charming smile, which made persuading victims an easy task, easily conning his way into their home despite the women hardly knowing him. Wayne agreed to go with the police to the station for questioning. During the interview, he admitted to being the owner of the cufflink, but quickly explained that Elizabeth was alive and well when he left her apartment. But investigators weren't buying his story and held him on suspicions of murder. In order to charge him, they needed the evidence, so they turned their attention to Elizabeth's bite mark. For the first time in Canadian forensic science, an orthodontist, Gordon Swan, was asked to compare Wayne's teeth to the marks on the victim. Gordon was able to demonstrate 29 points of similarity between the two, proving that no other set of teeth could have made these exact marks. With the teeth impressions, Calgary authorities were able to officially charge Wayne with the murder of Elizabeth. He was tried and found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. After sentencing, Wayne went on to admit to the murders of the 3 women from Montreal, Shirley, Marielle, and Jean. Wayne was extradited to Montreal, where again his teeth were used against him. He was found guilty on 3 additional counts of murder and given 3 more life sentences. When asked about Norma, Wayne denied having anything to do with her death, despite the similarities in the MO. It would later be discovered in 1994 that a man named Raymond Suave was responsible for Norma's murder. Wayne's sentence started in February 16, 1972 at the Kingston Penitentiary. However, just 5 years into his prison time, he was able to escape for a 36-hour period. Somehow, Wayne was approved for a credit card, which he used on a day pass from prison. He decided to not return at the end of his day pass. He was apprehended after a few days and returned back to his cell, where he stayed until his death. In February 2006, Wayne was moved to Kingston General Hospital, where he spent 6 weeks of confinement before dying of skin cancer on March 27, 2006. Hi friends, if you made it this far, thanks for sticking around. I always enjoy the story behind videos, and I hope you do as well. I did also want to include that Roy Moore has gone on record stating that George Webster's story was his ultimate inspiration for Black Christmas, but there was also an interview done where the actor who plays the killer role in Black Christmas has stated Wayne Boden was also an inspiration, so it's kind of like speculation for Wayne's story, but I wanted to include it anyways in case that is the case. So, anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I can't wait to see what 2023 has to offer to all of us as a community. I also intended for this video to be out before Christmas, but I needed to take some time for myself because breaks are necessary, especially around the holidays, and I hope you all got some much needed downtime because you earned it. This will be my last video of 2022, so I just want to take a moment and get a little sappy if you guys don't mind. This has been a great year for me as a content creator, and I have to hand it to all of you. If it weren't for your supportive comments, tips about how to do this YouTube thing better, or even case suggestions, I wouldn't be where I am without all of you, all 63,000 of you. Thank you for tuning in every week. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for the likes, and hey, even the dislikes. Any time out of your day spent on me, I appreciate. Thank you for sharing, thank you for telling your friends, and thank you for just loving what I do. Happy New Year's, my friends. Please stay safe. Be responsible if you're out having fun. And I almost forgot my YouTube spiel, so if you don't mind, like, comment, subscribe, because here at Under the Ash Tree, we would love to have you join us. Thank you so much, and as always, I will see you in the next one. Bye, friends.